I want to talk about something that potentially has the power to eliminate 95% of your concerns about the future. Maybe 100%. But we can take our time here because in order to see these things, we really have to observe with an openness. And I feel like this pertains a lot to what you guys are bringing up. What's next? What's coming? And a lot of these things we talk about in this group relate to how we relate to ourselves, others, and life. And what we discover in that is we're always encountering our self-relationship. We are always seeing how we relate to ourselves. And with that, as we've explored, whenever you encounter an experience, what you experience is how you see that experience. And in your own time, or very quickly now, see that there's no way around that. And this is what I love about investigating the truth of things, is that it's not just a cute spiritual idea, like, oh, that would be nice. It's holy shit. That's really true. And I can't get away from it. So I can either surrender to what's true and let the truth be the truth, or I can keep pretending it's something else. And so the truth of the matter that I want you to be open to acknowledging is that as you encounter experience, as things happen, as people say things, what you experience is your interpretation. What you experience is what you turn it into. And this really speaks to our creatorship. In every moment as life is happening, we are creating an experience. By deciding what this is, what it isn't, what it means, what it doesn't mean, if it's good, if it's bad, if it's offensive. All of these things are determined by a particular flavor of perception. And as we go through this journey, in one way we can say that we are on a journey of healing our perception. We are learning to see things more in alignment with the way that they actually are, rather than how we imagine them to be. For me, this is enlightenment. To see things as they are, rather than how I imagine them to be. And if you look at your suffering, if you look at your disappointments, and you reflect on them, you will see that you turn things into something that they're not. And with that came consequences. Now, my hope here is that you find fascination with this. Like, for me, this is what sets my heart on fire. Like this, holy shit, what do I think is even happening here? This life that I'm living. Because you can get trapped in this narrative as you live your life where you believe that what you think is happening, rather than this is what I'm putting there. This is the waking up process. You're waking up to see that. To see beyond the illusion, beyond the veil, that actually out there, there's nothing happening. You might as well say it's a light show. Just energy is moving. And then we as human beings are telling stories. And we are experiencing our stories. And just to drive the point home, you can have two people watching a movie, and for one person, they're watching a comedy, and another person, they're watching a drama. One person finds it kind of funny, another person's crying, but yet they're watching the same movie. One person loses their job, and for them, it's the end of the world. And for another person, it's the beginning of a new adventure. Do you see the vast contrast between that? It's two different worlds. In the way that you perceive is a momentum of conditioning. You've been trained to see the way that you see. And it's not even your fault. This is important to recognize, that the way that you see, according to the journey that you've been on, makes perfect sense. Given the environment you were born into, the fearful confusion, it makes sense that you see what you see. And now you are on a journey of clarifying that perception to see more truth, which is also the same as seeing more love. Because, I guess, again, to drive it home, when you see beyond what you put there, essentially what you're seeing beyond are all your judgments. You're seeing beyond all of your perceived separations. And when you see past all of those things, the only thing that remains is an openness of being, where everything that is allowed to be. And I guess while we're on the theme of driving points home, the same can be said about standing in the forest. You can stand there and you can argue with the 10,000 things, make up stories about how it should be. But when you step back and just see the totality of everything, it makes perfect sense why everything is doing exactly what it's doing, so that the forest can be the forest. It doesn't matter if you think it smells bad. It doesn't matter if you think the bugs should stop fighting. It doesn't matter that you don't like that things die. Everything that's happening happens so that life can be life, so that this moment can be this moment. And that's where everything comes together. In all the separate pieces, you realize they're just one thing. And we can call that one thing life. And it's a gift. And the more that you see it's one thing, the more you see there's nothing to argue with, and then you're allowed to relax. And you realize, oh, this is really beautiful. Okay. So now that we clarified that a little bit, as it relates to your future, let me ask you a question. In the future, what are you going to see or experience other than what you think you are experiencing? What are you going to see other than what you put there? Do you see it really doesn't matter what happens? Because no matter what happens, you're only going to see and experience what you put there. You're going to interpret things as a problem or an opportunity, as a prison cell or a great adventure. And then that will be your experience. And you can see very clearly how this ultimately creates the practicality of your experience. For the one who loses a job and they interpret it as a violent blow to their self-worth, do you see how that impacts the continuation of their journey? How closed off they are to more opportunity, how afraid they become. And for the one who sees it as an adventure, I wonder what's coming next. The openness that's there that invites new experiences. This is why, fundamentally, I'm always saying in some way, it is so important to just deal with right now. To see the opportunity right now, to look at where you're at right now, to see it more clearly, because you're learning how to see more clearly. And that learning you take with you. Do you see that? You take the learning with you no matter where you go. That's why I'm not concerned about what happens for you in the future. It doesn't matter. Because if you don't, let's say, learn this skill set to see things more clearly, then even if something wonderful happens, you won't even get a chance to experience it. You'll turn it into a monster. And so with everything that is perceivably a problem right now, and which again is fine because these could also be seen as opportunities. We can even just start there. Look at what seems to be a problem and see that you're experiencing that you see it as a problem. And again, I'm using silly words here because you could see it as a problem, but that could be fun. I mean, you see it in such a way that it's a threat to your worth and value. That's the big problem. This threatens who I think I am. This threatens my lovability, my wholeness. This threatens me being enough. And just see that whatever is going on doesn't really mean that. That's what we are putting on top of it. That's what the conditioning puts on top of it. So it's not even you that's doing it. Do you see that your conditioning is created by the whole of existence? It wasn't created by your parents. It wasn't created by your parents' parents. It was created by everything. Look at how much went into your conditioning, even before you were born. Look at how much there is that's so beyond your own doing. My point here is, it's more true to say that you are watching this happen rather than the one that's doing it. Because that's another way of perceiving it, which is to blame yourself. That I'm the one that's having these negative thoughts. I'm the one that can't get this right. But when you step back and look, you see that, oh, this is just a patterned way of thinking. And this really invites us to just step back and take a breath and see that what we think is there isn't really there. And as you see that it's not really there, there's this space that begins to emerge, and maybe we can call that a space of possibility. In the same breath, we can say that we are proclaiming that we know something that when we look more deeply, we don't really know that. I know this means that I'm screwed. Do you know that? Really? I know that this means that it's going wrong. Do you know that? Just notice what happens when you think you know something. You feel a tension in your body. A restriction. And when you acknowledge you don't know, truly don't know, and cannot know, there's a relaxation. Because you also have to be careful about what you think you know about not knowing. Like, I don't know, this is terrible. Is it? Do you know that? Here comes the tension. But to relax in the reality of not knowing. I was telling someone the other day about the pointer that says that life is inherently meaningless. And you've heard this probably in some way or another, that there's no inherent meaning in life. And do you see that if you're bothered by that at all, then you're giving meaning to no meaning? For me, this is amazing. You can only be bothered by the meaning of what you think it means, that there's no meaning. Which means you don't really see the no meaning. For there to be no meaning suggests that there's no judgment, suggests that there's a vast emptiness. suggests that there's only right now. And in the same way, it just speaks to an absolute unknown, which is perfectly okay. You see, because when you can, let's just say, embrace a reality of no meaning, you see this vast landscape of emptiness that says you can turn it into whatever you want. And that will set the stage for your experience. It's like approaching a blank canvas with a palette full of colors and paintbrushes. Now understand that on this journey of healing perception, you are effectively learning to see through the misunderstanding, learning to see through the confusion, learning to see what's real. And in order for you to do that, you have to encounter all of those things. In order for you to become more clear, you have to see where it's not clear. And these are the lessons, where everything you encounter that disturbs you is essentially a misunderstanding that is looking to be clarified. Now, I totally get how quickly we will forget this. And we'll go back to the normalcy of our everyday lives and fall back into our human asleepness. But I also want to say that that too is part of it. Because this process of clarifying your perception is an intrinsic part of the journey. And it's happening whether you see it or not. And that's also said so that you understand that you're not going to be able to just jump in and take control of the process. Like, oh, I figured this out. I'm never going to fall asleep again. I got it. This is the answer. Good luck. For me, what this invites through seeing behind the curtain is an invitation to trust the totality of life. It's very obvious to me that there is something conscious happening here, something sacred, something extraordinary, and it knows what it's doing. And for me, it's a beautiful opportunity to surrender myself to that. Because I see that it's trying to help me. And I'm sure this is something we can all relate to, where there's moments where you think that life is trying to piss you off. And then given enough time, you go, oh, now I see. And that is always the case. And I would assume you can also see that what makes this whole process difficult as well is simply beating yourself up about it. Whether that's thinking you know that you should be more enlightened than you are, whatever that means. Thinking you know that you already learn this lesson thinking you know what's best for you, as if life didn't get the memo. And in my experience, this is so incredibly humbling to keep running into the realization that life knows my heart better than I do. Life knows what's best for my journey through healing perception than I do. And the only thing that interrupts that process is this imaginary character called Tiger that thinks he knows how things should be. And you see the opportunity to surrender that. And again, not for the rest of your life, but just now. Like, oh, wow, I see that. It's like you encounter one of these moments and you're just inspired to bow down to life just for a moment and say, I see you. Thank you.